Zoe here, and today we are doing the Actually Infected 2024 Drawing Challenge. So basically this drawing challenge takes place over October 8th to October 28th, and every couple of days you're doing a drawing. It's kind of like Inktober, but you have a few days between each thing, so that way that there's a little less pressure to get it done. And I honestly thought that this year's prompts were more interesting than Inktober, so I decided to do this for this video instead. So you can find the prompt list, which I will be having up on screen, over on June's Twitter, which is a link on screen and in the description. So I guess without further ado, let's get right on into this. Oh wait, another ado. I only recorded day 4 for this, and that's going to be what's playing while I'll show images of the other days, because some of these days I was using physical media and I don't really have a good way to record that. Day 1's prompt was marker bleed, so I didn't really know what I was doing with this one, so I decided I was going to draw a couple of creatures from this book that I got called Dungeons and Drawings. It's an art book that has a really bunch of cool artwork in it of monsters, and I flipped through that to random pages and just drew a couple of them to use that, and then used the bleed through for the challenge. So on the back side of the page immediately, the bleed through was just way too much. It was just the same drawing but flipped, so I decided to use the page after that, and then just took the collection of shapes, because it's like they were just like a bunch of dots and that sorts of stuff, and took those shapes and made it kind of like creatures and that sorts of thing. Yes, the image that I did make was odd, and when I posted it to Twitter and Blue Sky, I just did the pencil work without realizing, oh, it doesn't really show up very much. So I went back and drew over the line work with a Sharpie. Day 2 was corrupted file, and it took me a little bit of thinking on how do I represent a corrupted file. Like, I could have looked up corrupted images and tried to draw something that looked like that, but I wasn't quite feeling that. I wanted to do something a bit different than that. So as I was rewatching Murder Drones, I had the connection of, oh, there's weird flesh stuff in robots. So that kind of became my concept for this one, where I drew a computer. The tower of the computer, it started sprouting like these fleshy limbs with like eyes and stuff, and one of them kind of wrapped around, grabbed the monitor that obviously had the image of a corrupted file taking over the computer. So yeah, that there was that concept. It was fun to do, and I wanted to have kind of everything around it be dark, while it was just kind of the light from the screen being the only light source, and the eyes glowing. So I guess the screen wasn't the only light source. Whatever, moving on. Day 3 is misprint. My first thoughts on this one was a printer that like ran out of ink but printed anyways, and I was like, well, that's just kind of normal, and like instead of it being like in black ink, it's like pink or something like that if you're printing like a paperwork file for school or something. And I was like, I don't really know how to make an image like that but make it spooky, because it's kind of what I'm trying to do with these, is try and make them a little bit spooky because it's Spooktober. And then I kind of thought of Gravity Falls and the episode where Dipper winds up cloning himself using a haunted copy machine. So I kind of took that idea, and it was a printer that was printing a picture of kind of like a hand, and then it started to kind of lift up out of the paper, and it got like jammed, and the ink thing running over started causing it to get cut up and bleeding, and that coming out all over the paper. So there we go. That there is day 3. Alright, next up is day 4, and that prompt is scrapped. This is the one on screen that you're watching that I recorded. At first, I was thinking of doing something like a collage of things, like cut-ups from like a magazine and like construction paper and that sort of stuff, and do some physical media, but obviously, I didn't do that, and that's because I didn't have any of those things on hand, and I really didn't want to go out and buy a magazine, or construction paper, or a glue stick. Then I thought of scrap. And then I thought of 40k orcs, because they're always up for a good scrap, and they're basically Mad Max the faction. So here we are with an orc decapitating a guardsman. I thought that would also be perfect because I was playing Space Marine 2, and that reminded me of Space Marine 1. And something that I did notice about this only after I posted the image to like Twitter and Blue Sky, and that was I was focused on that hand and I drew it backwards. And it did cause me to lose sleep, so I did get up in the middle of the night and fix it. So there we are, done with day 4. Day 5 is spilled ink. And when I saw that, I was like, you don't cry over spilled milk, so we're not gonna cry over spilled ink. And I was like, I don't have ink in a bottle. I do have pots of paint though, for painting minis. So, spilled that on a piece of paper. And then I moved the piece of paper around a little bit to get like a really good flat shape, waited for it to dry, and when I was looking at that, I was like, that's just a little guy right there. That's what the silhouette looks like. But I couldn't just do like a cute little guy. I had to make it all messed up and kind of gross because, like I said earlier, it's October and that's the season. So I drew this messed up little guy. And we all have to look at this now. You're welcome. Day 6 is analog film. So, I had to Google that one to make sure that I was thinking of the correct thing, which I was. And it's basically film used in disposable cameras. Once upon a time, you could get those at the grocery store. I remember seeing them as a kid. But, now you can't, because why would you buy that? Because most people have a phone. Anyways, my idea was me holding a roll of film, and on it would be like a picture that I had taken that hadn't yet been developed. I decided to base it off of a picture that I took when I was at the Space Needle once upon a time, and I decided to put a little ghost in the background. I was wanting to make that ghost look actually spooky or scary instead of just like a dabbing little guy, but I ultimately went with the dabbing little guy because I was struggling with the scale of a spooky ghost. I went with the small one because it was easier. Day 7 is broken model. So what I was going to do was I was going to take one of my little models that I have for like board games and stuff and like cut it up to make it look like a broken statue and then paint it as that, but like the statue is bleeding. But before I cut them up, I realized the inside was hollow because I had assembled them. And I didn't have things like green stuff or milliput to make the blood kind of dripping down out of the wound or to close up the holes that would be there. So I ultimately didn't do that, and instead took one of my OCs from the comic series that I currently am working on, which link will be in the description down below if you're interested, drew her as a statue, and then broke the statue and made it bleeding. So that was my compromise. Day 8 was tangled thread. My first thought was Coraline, and that was mainly because of the button eyes and the sewing of the Coraline doll at the beginning of the movie. I don't think I'm making that up. It's been a long time since I've seen it. But ultimately, I wasn't really sure of what I wanted to do with a Coraline tangled thread thing. And then it kind of hit me like a slap across the face of Adelaide from Over the Garden Wall. Her house is full of string and rugs that she's sewn and all that sorts of stuff. It's hanging from the ceiling, it's draped around the floor. So I decided that that's what I was going to do. I was going to draw Adelaide. She's hand knitting something in this, as opposed to sewing a rug, but you know, whatever, that's fine. And I just made sure to put a bunch of string all over that's Adelaide of the Tangled Thread Challenge day. Day 9 is blue screen, and I didn't want to do another PC gone creepy or take one of my computers or computer monitors and do something to make it blue screen. So, you know, I had to think a little bit outside the box for this one. And by outside the box, I mean I thought of my favorite little funny robots. Yeah, we're doing a Murder Drones. It's Murder Drones time. This time I decided let's do some fan art of Jay, because I hadn't done Jay. I think I've done V, Uzi, and N, and there's a bunch of other characters I haven't done, but I haven't done Jay. So I used episode 5 for this kind of inspiration, because in the episode there's kind of like this hanging like skeleton of one of the murder drones. I say skeleton, like framework I think is what it is. And then I was also thinking it was kind of like inside the boarded manor, and I used kind of like one of the windows as like a coffin for like backlighting in this, and overall I'm really glad that this is how this one turned out. This one I did, as you've probably seen up on the thing, I did record this one for a YouTube short, so I just sort of put it here. Day 10 is anomalies. So I first thought of like the game's observation duty and other games that are like it. There's plenty of them. And then I also thought of He Who Fights with Monsters, Book 6, because Jason is in a place of unreality fighting anomalies. I went with Book 6 because I felt like it would be easier to draw something based off the descriptions that were given in the book versus like a statue that looks weird. So the concept for this one was based off of some of the anomalies that Jason was fighting. So the description was it was essentially astronauts with guns kind of in like this ruined city. This was some of the first anomalies he was fighting in a large group, and that was the theme of them. So to make these look less human and more anomaly-like, I gave them a snake body and tentacle arm with, of course, the space gun, and I based the spacesuit off of just some images that I found when I googled spacesuit. Yay, hooray! This is the first time I finished an October drawing challenge. So, you know, small victories. ADHD makes it hard for me to actually finish these things. Part of the reason why I went with the easier challenge as opposed to every day. I do wish that I made some more physical art pieces, because I could have recorded more of these and had more things for you to view me actually drawing, as opposed to just one that is really slow, but whatever, what's done is done. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and the like if you did, and if you have a comment, go ahead and make that down below. Subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!